Rome, October 1943. A corridor inside a Catholic hospital on a small island in the Tiber. An SS officer walks the hallway and stops. On the door in front of him, a sign, Syndrome K, highly contagious. He reads it once, then reads it again. From behind the door, a cough, low, wet, the kind that builds and doesn't stop. His hand moves toward the handle, stops. Behind it, people the Nazis have been hunting since dawn. Not hiding, not running, lying in hospital beds, signed in as patients. All of them healthy. Rome, October 16, 1943, early morning. Giovanni Borromeo stands at the window of the hospital he runs, 44 years old. 18 days earlier, a German SS commander named Herbert Kappler had made a demand, 50 kilograms of gold, delivered within 36 hours, or 200 Jews would be deported. The community paid. They gathered gold from their own homes. When they ran short, non-Jewish Romans filled the rest. They delivered it, every gram. For 18 days, the community believed the threat had passed. Vittorio Sacerdoti crosses the bridge. He is 28 years old, a Jewish doctor working under a false name. Borromeo opens the door himself. Sacerdoti tells him what he saw. At 5:15 in the morning, the soldiers came, trucks in the street, groups moving door to door, a family from the building across the street, 2 adults, 3 children. Then the next building, then the next. Borromeo stands in the doorway and doesn't move. He listens until Sacerdoti stops talking. Then he says, "Go back. Bring whoever you can find." The first people arrive within hours, some brought by Sacerdoti, others who had run from the roundup on their own, slipped through side streets, found the island by chance or by instinct. Borromeo signs the admission forms himself, one by one. The space on the form says, illness. He writes a name, crosses it out. A real disease would mean real protocols, real doctors called in, real records checked. A real disease could be verified. He needs something that cannot be verified. Borromeo is sitting with Sacerdoti and Adriano Ossicini, a psychiatrist, Catholic, anti-fascist, 23 years old. The three of them are looking at an admission form, standard hospital document, a patient name, a date, a ward, and a line for diagnosis. The name on the form is real, someone who arrived that day, Jewish, healthy, no medical condition at all. The line for diagnosis is blank. Borromeo knows what happens if a German officer walks through this ward and finds a patient with no diagnosis. He knows what happens if that officer asks why a healthy adult is in a hospital bed. He picks up a pen and waits. Ossicini says, "Give it something they will be afraid of. Not just afraid, the kind where the body moves before the mind catches up. Something that makes the decision for him before he has time to question it." They talk through the options. Tuberculosis, cancer, something neurological, degenerative, fatal, attacking the brain while the body stays intact. Convulsions, paralysis, dementia, death by asphyxiation, slow, from the inside. Then Ossicini says, "Call it K." K for Kesselring, the German commander of Nazi forces in Rome. K for Kappler, the SS chief of police who demanded the gold, watched it delivered, sent the train to Auschwitz anyway. They paid in gold for a promise that was already broken when it was made. Now they will pay in paper. And in German medical shorthand, K already carries shadows. Koch, tuberculosis. Krebs, cancer. The letter pulls those associations on the right document without naming them. Ossicini knows this. That is why he chose it. The same name does 2 things at once. To the officer in the corridor, danger, do not enter. To the nurse who passes that door every morning, it means something else. Someone inside needs protection. She doesn't need to know more than that. Ossicini is not just naming a disease, he is signing himself into the operation. His idea, his name on it. He knows the cost if it fails. Later he will say it plainly, the idea to call it Syndrome K, like Kesselring or Kapler, was mine. Borromeo writes it down. K syndrome, highly contagious. Neurological deterioration. Prognosis, terminal. He looks at what he has written, then signs it. A false diagnosis, in an official hospital document, in a city under Nazi occupation. That is the point of no return. The document will exist. His signature will be on it. He creates a second form, then a third. Now they build the second layer. The patients, those well enough to perform, are told what to do. When they hear boots in the corridor, they cough. Loud, sustained, the kind that carries through a closed door and says without words, whatever is in that room, you do not want to be near it. Children get the same instruction. When you hear heavy footsteps, cough. As loud as you can. Don't stop until they're gone. Sacerdoti explains it to the youngest ones himself. He sits with Luciana, his cousin, 10 years old, in the bed nearest the door, and tells her, when you hear certain footsteps, you cough. She nods and doesn't ask why. He walks back into the corridor and doesn't let himself think about what he has just asked her to do. To perform illness on command, in a room full of soldiers, with her life depending on whether she does it convincingly. The third layer is the name itself. K syndrome, convulsions, paralysis, dementia, death by asphyxiation. Highly contagious, no known treatment. Not one word of that is true. It exists only in these forms, these charts, these documents with real signatures at the bottom. The system on the other side of those doors will never open the filing cabinet and check whether the disease is real. It will read the form, will process and file it. Borromeo is building something inside that trust. A hollow space, a room the officers will walk past and never open. He stacks the completed forms, slides them into a folder, puts the folder in the filing cabinet. He locks it. 3 patients admitted, 3 diagnoses, 3 signatures. He stands for a moment in the silence. Then from somewhere down the corridor, a cough. Low, sustained, building. Then another voice. Then a third. He didn't have to ask them to start. Someone heard the footsteps of the nurse, or heard enough and began. Borromeo stands in the corridor and listens. The coughing fills the ward. It sounds in the dark of the hospital exactly like a disease. K, taken from the names of the 2 men whose job is to find the people behind the door. The disease exists now. It has a name, a symptom list, an official record, and a lock. What it needs now is one German officer who trusts what is written more than what is behind the door. K syndrome, convulsions, paralysis, dementia, death by asphyxiation, highly contagious, no known treatment. Not one word of that is true. It exists only in these forms, these charts, these documents with real signatures at the bottom. The system on the other side of those doors will never open the filing cabinet and check whether the disease is real. It will read the form, will process, and file it. Borromeo is building something inside that trust, a hollow space, a room the officers will walk past and never open. He stacks the completed forms, slides them into a folder, puts the folder in the filing cabinet. He locks it. 3 patients admitted, 3 diagnoses, 3 signatures. He stands for a moment in the silence. Then, from somewhere down the corridor, a cough. Low, sustained, building. Then another voice, then a third. He didn't have to ask them to start. Someone heard the footsteps of the nurse, or heard enough, and began. Borromeo stands in the corridor and listens. The coughing fills the ward. It sounds, in the dark of the hospital, exactly like a disease. K, taken from the names of the two men whose job is to find the people behind the door. The disease exists now. It has a name, a symptom list, an official record, and a lock. What it needs now is one German officer who trusts what is written more than what is behind the door. Late October, 1943. The footsteps come early in the morning, and Borromeo knows what they are before he sees them. Not patients, not orderlies. The sound is different. Heel first, hard, evenly spaced. The sound of boots on tile, moving with purpose down the main corridor. He walks out of his office. SS officers, accompanied by a German doctor. They have come to inspect the hospital. They have a list of questions. They want to see the wards. Borromeo greets them. He leads them through the corridor, describing the hospital as he walks. He answers questions without pausing. He does not hesitate at doorways. Then one of the officers stops. He wants to know about admissions. How many new patients in the past 2 weeks? When the last one arrived, what ward? Borromeo gives him the numbers without hesitating, the exact numbers, the exact dates, in the tone of a man who finds the question entirely unremarkable. The officer writes something down. They continue walking. Toward the end of the corridor, there is one door Borromeo has not mentioned yet. Inside the ward, Sacerdoti hears them before he sees anything. Footsteps, 4 sets, 3 of them he doesn't recognize. He moves to the center of the room. Luciana, his cousin, is in the bed nearest the door. He looks at her. She starts to cough. He didn't signal her. She read him and started on her own. Loud, sustained, the cough he taught her, the one that says, "Do not come closer." He watches her. That is all he taught her, and she is doing it well enough to save her own life. In the corridor, Borromeo stops at the door. On the chart outside, K syndrome, highly contagious. He stops. He turns to the officers and begins to describe what is behind that door. Convulsions, paralysis, progressive neurological deterioration. He warns them it is highly contagious. One officer approaches the door. The German doctor stays close. From behind the door, the coughing is already there. The officer looks at the sign. He opens it. The officer stands in the threshold. He does not step further. This is what he sees. A ward of beds, each one occupied. Some elderly, some younger. Charts on the walls. A doctor standing in the center of the room, not moving toward him, not moving away. The room smells like a sick room. The light is low. He is looking for someone who should not be here. Someone whose eyes are too alert, whose posture is wrong, whose hands are not the hands of a person who has been lying in a hospital bed for 2 weeks. The coughing builds, low, wet, overlapping, each voice joining the next until it fills the room from every direction at once. He reads the card on the nearest bed. Luciana Sacerdoti, age 10, K syndrome, highly contagious, prognosis, terminal. 1 more second. 2. The coughing doesn't stop. He looks back at the German doctor. The doctor has already stepped away from the door. The officer steps back. He closes the door. He walks away down the corridor. Borromeo leads them through the rest of the building. He shakes hands at the entrance. He watches the car pull away. He walks back inside. They came. That is the fact. Inside the ward, Sacerdoti sits on the edge of a bed. Luciana is watching him. The officer walked out. The door is closed. But the numbers still don't add up, and the Germans are still counting. The numbers don't add up. The Germans know it. By November 1943, the inspections are coming more often. Different officers, different questions, but the same slow movement through the same corridors. The Germans are still counting. The operation runs on a simple principle. Every person knows exactly as much as they need to know, nothing more. Borromeo knows everything. Sacerdoti knows almost everything. The nurse who passes Ward K every morning at 6 a.m. knows only that she does not enter. The friar who files the records knows only which forms go in which folder. If any one of them is caught, they cannot give what they don't have. It was built in a night, but it holds. A woman has been in Ward K for 3 weeks. A convent on the other side of the city has space for her now. The paperwork catches up with her the same afternoon. Borromeo signs the death certificate himself. Cause of death, K syndrome. He writes the date, the ward, the admitting physician. Then he writes the time of death. He pauses on this. Every death certificate he has ever signed before this one had a time on it because someone had noted the time. The time was a fact. Now he is looking at the clock on his wall and choosing a number. He writes it down. She is alive. She is walking across the city in a borrowed coat, carrying nothing that connects her to the hospital, or the ward, or the time Borromeo just invented. The disease that doesn't exist has just killed its first patient on paper. A few months later, a document arrives from the Occupation Administration. Standard procedure, all staff must declare their status. Every employee, every department. Borromeo fills out the form himself. The name he writes is not Sacerdoti's real name. It hasn't been since 1941, when Borromeo gave him a place here under borrowed papers. The declaration states, non-Jewish ancestry confirmed. Borromeo signs it. He submits it with the rest. The administration processes the forms. All personnel accounted for. The system has just verified a man who does not exist. Borromeo opens the filing cabinet and takes out the folder with the death certificates. He counts them. Each name is someone alive somewhere in this city tonight, in a convent, in a private house, in a room above a bakery across the river. Alive because a disease that doesn't exist killed them on paper, and the system trusted the paper. He puts the folder back and locks the cabinet. Spring 1944. In the basement of the hospital, a radio transmitter has been sending information to partisan groups in the hills outside Rome. Troop movements, checkpoint locations, the timing of supply convoys. Short bursts at night from a room on no official floor plan. The transmitter is not the problem on its own. The signal is. Every transmission leaves a trace, a location, a frequency, a pattern the Germans can follow back to its source. And if they follow it here, they don't just find a radio, they find everything else. The Germans trace the signal to somewhere near the island. Borromeo hears about it through a contact in the resistance. If they find it, the hospital ends that afternoon. He has perhaps 12 hours before they come looking. That night, he and the prior carry the transmitter out in pieces. They walk to the river. They drop everything into the Tiber and watch each piece disappear. 2 days later, the Germans search the building. Flashlights, walls, floor, ceiling. When they finish, one officer stays at the entrance for another hour. He doesn't watch the building. He watches Borromeo. Paper cannot account for everything, and now someone is starting to look past the paper. May 1944, the 8th month. The Germans come again, and this time they search differently. Not just the wards, the whole building, every floor, every room, every space that is not on the official floor plan. Borromeo is with the group on the ground floor when he hears voices from above. Not questions, orders. 5 people are on the 4th floor balcony when the Germans arrive. Polish Jews still waiting for a bed, for a chart, for a safe way out of the city. They had not yet been admitted. They had no diagnosis, no chart, no sign on the door above them. The officers find them. They are arrested. Borromeo watches them take the 5 people away. He knows their names. He had been preparing their paperwork. Forms that would have admitted them, given them a diagnosis, put them inside the system. The forms are still in the cabinet, unsigned, unfiled. June 4th, 1944. Allied forces enter Rome. The occupation ends. The inspections stop. The German officers who walked through the wards, read the charts, chose to believe what was written, are gone. Every patient the disease ever killed is still alive. The most serious breach in 8 months, and every person taken in that breach came home. Giovanni Borromeo died on August 24, 1961, in the same hospital on the same island in the Tiber. The 5 people arrested on the balcony survived when Rome was liberated. Yad Vashem, Israel's Holocaust memorial, recognized Borromeo as righteous among the nations in 2004, 43 years after his death. Adriano Ossicini said, "Syndrome K was put on patient papers to indicate that the sick person wasn't sick at all, but Jewish." The exact number of people the operation protected is unknown. Estimates range from several dozen to over 100. Some accounts suggest several hundred. That's the end of the story. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe to get more stories like this.